At 76, Harold was still sharp, or so everyone thought. He read the newspaper every morning, walked his dog, and never missed his favorite Sunday crossword. But over the past year, something began to shift. Not suddenly, quietly. He started repeating stories, then forgetting names. He stopped calling his old friends. At first, his daughter brushed it off. "He's just getting older," she said. But within months, Harold, the man who once prided himself on being the most curious voice in any room, could barely hold a conversation. What happened? The truth is, the aging brain doesn't collapse overnight. It fades, habit by habit, silently, invisibly. And many of the things we assume are normal signs of aging are actually choices that speed up cognitive decline. In this video, we'll reveal 7 everyday habits that may be aging your brain faster than you realize, starting with one that seems harmless but could be quietly robbing years from your memory. Stay with us, because by recognizing these subtle behaviors now, you may still have time to protect your mind and your future. It started small. Joanne, 73, used to attend a local knitting group every Thursday. She would laugh, talk, and share stories with women she'd known for decades. But one winter, when her arthritis flared up, she stayed home. The next week, she skipped again, then again. Eventually, she stopped going altogether. "It's just easier to stay in," she told her daughter. "Besides, I can keep myself busy." But over the next few months, her daughter noticed something else. Joanne became quieter, slower to react. She struggled to find the right words. She began confusing dates and forgetting appointments, something that had never happened before. Most people associate brain health with puzzles or vitamins, but few realize that social interaction is one of the brain's most powerful protectors. When we engage in conversation, our brain fires on multiple levels: memory, language, emotional processing. It's like a full-body workout for the mind. But when that stimulation disappears, neural connections begin to weaken. Loneliness isn't just sad, it's dangerous. Studies have shown that prolonged social isolation can increase the risk of dementia by up to 60%. And it's not just about being surrounded by people, it's about meaningful engagement, conversation, shared laughter, connection. The brain craves it. If someone you know has been withdrawing, canceling plans, avoiding calls, saying "I'm fine," but pulling away, it might be more than just mood. It might be their brain quietly shutting down pathways it no longer uses. What can be done? Sometimes the answer is as simple as a 5-minute phone call, a walk with a neighbor, a shared meal. Encourage small social moments, even if virtual, because the brain is like a muscle, and if it isn't stretched, it shrinks. Margaret had always been a light sleeper, but after turning 75, her nights became increasingly fragmented. She'd fall asleep around midnight, then wake up at 2 a.m., wide-eyed and restless. She'd scroll through her phone, sip some water, maybe turn on the TV, anything to distract herself from the silence. By morning, she felt foggy, irritable, and drained. Her family thought it was normal. "That's just aging," they said. "Old people don't sleep much." But the truth is far more serious. Sleep is not just rest, it's brain repair. During deep sleep, the brain cleans itself. Literally. A fluid called cerebrospinal fluid washes over the brain, clearing out toxic waste, including a protein called beta amyloid, which is linked to Alzheimer's disease. Without consistent, high-quality sleep, this cleansing process is interrupted, and the toxins begin to build up. That's why disrupted sleep isn't just annoying, it's dangerous. Poor sleep affects memory, mood, attention span, and decision-making. And over time, chronic sleep deprivation accelerates cognitive decline. Margaret began forgetting small things, where she put her keys, whether she had already taken her medication. Then one day she mixed up her grandson's name. That's when her daughter finally paid attention. So what causes sleep disruption in aging adults? Several things. Melatonin production decreases with age, bladder activity increases, anxiety or loneliness at night becomes more common. And yes, screen time before bed doesn't help either. The good news? Sleep can be trained. Simple changes like keeping a consistent sleep schedule, turning off screens an hour before bed, dimming the lights in the evening, or sipping calming herbal tea can signal the brain, it's time to rest. And one more thing, don't ignore daytime fatigue. Seniors who nap excessively during the day often disrupt their nighttime cycles. It's important to balance rest with light activity. Margaret's routine eventually changed. She began turning in at 9:30, stopped bringing her phone to bed, and took short walks before dinner. Within weeks, her sleep improved, and so did her memory. Sleep is not optional for the aging brain, it's maintenance. And without it, even the sharpest mind will begin to dull. Frank never considered himself inactive. At 78, he read the paper each morning, played Sudoku after lunch, and spent evenings watching documentaries from his recliner. He wasn't lazy, just resting his bones, as he liked to say. But over time, something changed. Frank began feeling stiff when he stood up. His balance worsened. He tripped once in the kitchen, then again by the back door. His daughter grew concerned, and especially when Frank began needing help just to walk down the driveway. He shrugged it off. I'm just getting older. But aging wasn't the real problem. It was sitting. Too much of it. For too long. We often associate long sitting hours with heart problems, but few people realize what it does to the brain. Studies have shown that prolonged sedentary behavior can reduce blood flow to the brain, especially to areas responsible for memory and learning. It also leads to decreased production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, a protein essential for creating new brain cells and keeping existing ones healthy. In simple terms, sitting too much doesn't just weaken your muscles, it starves your brain. One study found that adults who sat for extended periods had noticeable thinning in their medial temporal lobe, the part of the brain crucial for forming memories. And the worst part? Even those who exercised once a day couldn't fully undo the damage of sitting 10 plus hours. The brain, like the body, thrives on movement. So what helped Frank? He didn't need a gym. He simply set a timer. Every 30 minutes, he'd get up, even just to stretch, refill his water, or walk a few steps. He added a short morning walk to his routine, stood during phone calls, and even watched TV from a standing desk. Small changes, but they added up. Within a few weeks, his energy improved, his balance returned, and most importantly, his mind felt sharper. Movement isn't just for muscles, it's oxygen for your brain. And the less you move, the faster your brain forgets how. Elaine was always proud of being efficient. Even at 72, she juggled multiple things at once, answering emails while folding laundry, talking on the phone while scanning TV news, flipping between 3 tabs on her laptop just to read one article. She called it keeping her mind busy. But over time, that busy mind became scattered. She began misplacing important items, her glasses, her medication, even her bank card. She struggled to recall conversations she'd just had, or names she'd always remembered. I guess I'm just getting forgetful, she'd say with a nervous laugh. But the truth was deeper than that. Multitasking doesn't sharpen the brain. It dulls it. When you try to do 2 or more cognitive tasks at the same time, your brain doesn't actually focus on both. It rapidly switches between tasks, like a light flickering back and forth. Each time it switches, it burns energy, increases mental fatigue, and reduces performance. Over time, this constant toggling erodes attention span, reduces memory retention, and increases mental stress. And for the aging brain, this load becomes even heavier. A study at Stanford University found that chronic multitaskers actually perform worse on memory tasks than those who focused on one thing at a time. Their brains were more distracted, more disorganized, and over time, less resilient. So what helped Elaine? She started practicing single tasking. It felt awkward at first. She had to resist the urge to check her phone while reading or to talk while sorting bills, but soon she noticed something surprising. Her thoughts became clearer, her mind less noisy, her memory stronger. She even began meditating for 5 minutes a day, just breathing, noticing, slowing down. The aging brain doesn't need more stimulation. It needs focused attention. Because when you try to do everything at once, you end up remembering nothing at all. Walter had always been a coffee all day, water never kind of man. At 74, he rarely felt thirsty, so he assumed he was fine. Besides, drinking water just meant more trips to the bathroom, and he already hated getting up at night. But in recent months, something felt off. He was more forgetful, dizzier when standing. Sometimes mid-sentence, he'd lose track of what he was saying. His daughter feared the early signs of dementia, but the culprit wasn't memory loss. It was dehydration. The brain is 75% water, and even slight dehydration can shrink brain tissue, reduce alertness, slow reaction time, and impair short-term memory. In older adults, the risk is even greater, because as we age, our body becomes less efficient at signaling thirst. You may not feel thirsty, but your brain might already be starving. Studies show that chronic dehydration in seniors can lead to confusion, irritability, headaches, and increased risk of falls, often mistaken for just aging. And it's not just water intake. Many seniors take medications, like diuretics or blood pressure pills, that increase fluid loss. Caffeine and alcohol don't help either. Walter's doctor asked a simple question. "How much plain water are you drinking?" Walter hesitated. "Maybe a glass." Two question mark. That's when the change began. He started setting a timer. Small sips every hour. He added slices of lemon to make it more enjoyable. Kept a lightweight bottle beside his chair. Within days, his headaches faded. Within weeks, his clarity returned. Hydration isn't just about quenching thirst. It's about keeping the brain electrically and chemically functional. Even a 2% drop in hydration can impact memory, concentration, and mood. And in older adults, that drop happens faster and recovers slower. So the next time you feel groggy, foggy, or off, don't reach for coffee. Reach for water. Carol used to be sharp. In her younger years, she was the go-to person for fixing spreadsheets at work, solving crossword puzzles on weekends, and organizing family trips with precision. But after retirement, things slowed. She deserved rest, of course. But eventually rest turned into routine, and routine turned into silence. She watched TV. She did housework. She scrolled through social media, but she stopped learning. She stopped stretching her brain, and slowly her thoughts began to blur. She'd forget why she entered a room, lose track of simple tasks. At first it was occasional, then it became daily. What was happening? The brain, just like the body, needs exercise to stay strong. And when it isn't challenged, it begins to atrophy. Neuroscientists call it cognitive stagnation. When you stop engaging in complex thinking, when you stop learning, when you stop trying new things, your neural pathways begin to fade. It's like a muscle that hasn't been moved. It weakens and eventually withers. Learning something new, whether it's a language, an instrument, or even a new card game, activates multiple regions of the brain. It builds resilience. It creates new synaptic connections. It keeps the brain flexible. Carol's doctor recommended something simple. Take up something unfamiliar. Not too hard, not too easy. She chose calligraphy. At first, her hands trembled, but slowly she improved. Letters turned to words, words to phrases, and something unexpected happened. Her memory improved, her focus returned, and most importantly, she felt proud again. You don't have to go back to school to protect your brain. You just have to keep it curious, challenge it, not with noise, but with meaningful stimulation. Because when the brain no longer feels needed, it starts to shut down. George was always a realist, or at least that's what he called it. He didn't expect much, rarely trusted people, and often assumed the worst. That way, he'd say, "I'm never disappointed." But in recent years, his outlook turned darker. He dwelled on regrets, spoke often about how bad things are these days. He watched the news obsessively, replayed old grudges in his mind, and kept a mental list of everything that had gone wrong in his life. And slowly something changed, not just in his attitude, but in his brain. Chronic negative thinking doesn't just affect your mood, it rewires your mind. When the brain repeatedly focuses on worry, anger, or resentment, it strengthens neural circuits tied to stress and fear. Over time, the brain becomes more sensitive to threats, more reactive, and less capable of switching to positive or neutral thought. In aging adults, this pattern can have devastating effects. Studies have linked repetitive negative thinking to faster memory decline and a higher risk of Alzheimer's disease. That's because chronic stress increases cortisol levels, which, when elevated over time, shrinks the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory and emotional regulation. George's daughter noticed he was becoming forgetful, moody, and withdrawn. She gently encouraged him to join a local community garden. He resisted at first, but eventually agreed to just watch. Weeks passed. Then he started watering, chatting, smiling, and then laughing. He didn't become a new man overnight, but the fog began to lift. The mind reflects what it's fed. If you constantly feed it fear, regret, and resentment, it becomes harder to see anything else. But when you introduce small moments of gratitude, connection, and purpose, you train your brain to shift, to let go, to heal. George still called himself a realist, but now he also smiled when he said it. So, where do we go from here? Harold, Margaret, Frank, Elaine, Walter, Carol, George, each of them had something in common. None of them were sick. None of them were losing their minds overnight. But each one had unknowingly fallen into habits that quietly aged their brain, day after day, year after year. The truth is, brain aging doesn't begin with a diagnosis. It begins in the small choices. The conversations we skip, the sleep we don't protect, the movement we delay, the multitasking we confuse for productivity, the water we forget to drink, the curiosity we stop chasing, and the thoughts we let take over. But here's the good news. You can change, no matter your age. The brain is resilient. It rewires, it heals, it grows when given the chance. Start small. Call a friend. Take a short walk. Go to bed 30 minutes earlier. Drink one more glass of water. Try something new. Challenge one negative thought with something true. You don't have to do it all at once. You just have to start telling your brain you still need it. Because when the brain knows it's still wanted, it stays alive. And if this video gave you even one insight or reminder that matters, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment below. What's one habit you're going to change this week? Share this with someone you care about. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications, because we're building a place where aging doesn't mean decline. It means transformation. Thank you for watching. Take care of your mind. It's the only one you've got.